This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
We should mention when you're talking about when he was gone, SummerSlam 91 was Andre's last appearance for the WWF in North America. 5 weeks after SummerSlam, he was sent to Europe to be in Davey Boy's corner against Earthquake. And that's his last run with the company. So I guess by getting to go on that European tour, he's able to end his career where it all began. And after he retired, he went home to North Carolina, and he's got his Texas Longhorns there. It's an interesting story that he's had. He works a few matches into two, but it's really just a spectacle. But in September of 92, that's when he baffles everybody and shows up at Clash of the Champions in Atlanta. And Shane McMahon was quoted as saying, "When Andre showed up on Ted Turner's broadcast, it was just a shock." A lot of hurt feelings going around on the other side of that. And we know it's not too terribly long from this, and we would learn that Andre the Giant passed away. He's playing cards on January 27th and drinking beer at a coffee shop. And they said that he looked tired, like he was experiencing back pain. And the only way they knew that is because he's leaning up against a wall. He gets back to his hotel after midnight. He goes to room 108, goes to sleep. And the next morning on the 28th, there's a driver there to pick him up at 9:30, but Andre didn't answer the phone. And when there's no answer, even past 3:00, they decide we need to go check. And they did, but it was too late. He was not breathing. And now they've got to figure out what in the world to do with him. And this sounds crass and crude, but they have a body of someone overseas now, and his family's in France, but he lives in North Carolina. What do we do? And eventually they fly his body to the United States, and they cremate him according to his wishes, and his ashes were scattered at his ranch in North Carolina. And he left everything to his daughter, Robin. It's pretty surreal, man, to know that a legend like this had it feels like Andre was a part of wrestling forever in my lifetime, but really it's only a handful of years of my fandom. I guess the lesson there is, let's appreciate what we got while we still got it, right?
Yeah. And Andre will continue to be a part of everyone's fandom if you're a fan of wrestling, because he was Andre the Giant. He was the first, he was the biggest, and he was the best. So to that, Andre the Giant lives on forever. And it was just such a shock at the time when Andre left us, and Pat, Randy Savage, and Vince made the funeral. Moolah was there. There's a few pictures of that funeral. I'll never forget Arnold Skolin. Arnie didn't want to go because Arnie didn't want to see his friend's ashes scattered over a cow field, as Arnie put it. But that was Andre's wishes. Andre, that's where Andre wanted to spend the rest of his life. And that's where he wanted his ashes. So everyone respected those wishes and did just that. And it was a little surreal. It was really a little surreal, because all of a sudden he was just gone.
I do want to mention something that is rumor and innuendo, but I feel like it's worth discussing. Allegedly, one of the holdups as he winds up staying, his body was overseas longer than maybe it needed to be, because they couldn't figure out exactly how to transport him back because they didn't have a casket large enough. And the rumor and innuendo is that when Vince McMahon learns of this, he has one custom made and sent over so they can bring Andre home. So if you see pictures of Andre's funeral and a giant casket and you wonder, why is there a big casket? I thought he was cremated. You're correct. He was cremated, but they needed a way to get the man from France to here. And the way to do that was to create a custom casket, and no one over there could figure out how to do that or what to do. And Vince took it upon himself to build a giant casket to get his friend home. It's such a sad deal to know that those guys weren't on the best of terms at the very end. When was the last time you talked to Andre?
Last time I talked to Andre would have been his last date. And that was, well, no, you know what? I take that back. I'll tell you a story about Andre. when I was fired, and it was Vince's 45th birthday or something like that August. I was still in Connecticut. And even though I'd been fired, I had been invited to this surprise birthday party for Vince. Went with Piper. And when we got there, Andre, it was at the Rainbow Room in Rockefeller Center. And Andre's sitting on a bench outside the deal. And it was presented to Vince that this was a big celebration for Dick Ebersol. He was getting a big award, and that Vince was presenting the award. That's what they did to get Vince to show up there. And beforehand, I was there with Regis Philbin and Piper and Heenan and a few other guys. And I thought it was so cool, Regis Philbin asking about me and what happened, and I'm going to talk to Vince. But Andre asked me, he says, "Where have you been?" I said, boss, I said, I got fired in May. And he was like, "Why?" And I said, "Look, man, I didn't really get along with Flip." And I said, "We just kind of came to an end, and Vince let me go." Now, this is Vince's birthday, and it's his night. And Andre cut a promo on Vince about firing me on Vince's birthday at his birthday party. Not a big deal, but it was like, "You keep all these other and you get rid of him and he's white." And so that was kind of cool on Andre's part. And I think that was the last time I saw the boss.
It's a pretty weird deal to think about it in hindsight about what a big impact he had and how famous he was. And it all happened, before cable TV, before social media, he was like one of the last great stars. Like, everybody in the whole world knew who he was. And this is pre-internet, and that's pretty fascinating to think about how it could be that big. What do you think ultimately will be his legacy in professional wrestling? Will it always be the feud with Hogan in WrestleMania 3? I mean, he set so many records with it. Biggest cable rating, biggest TV rating, biggest gate. I mean, just unbelievable.
I think that he's going to go down as the original eighth wonder of the world, because that's who Andre was. And he was arguably the single biggest attraction in the world, in the wrestling business, for many years, because you could put Andre the Giant on your card and you would have a sellout other than add his name. So I think that the eighth wonder of the world and one of the greatest attractions in the history of the business.
Bruce, I had fun visiting Andre the Giant, talking about Andre the Giant with you. We didn't know when we first got going how long we would go. We both thought, well, it'll be a little over an hour. Well, we're nearly 3 hours now, but we needed a giant-sized episode to pay tribute to such a giant athlete, right?
This is true. That's not fair. You're stealing my shit.
You didn't tell me you were going to say that. I was just guessing.
Well, I just thought it as you were leading up to that. I was going to say, well, it takes a giant episode to cover a giant. Then you went and stole my shit, because telepathically.
Oh, yeah, that.
Just did this right here. See, we did that. I went from here to there, and it went all the way to Alabama and came out in a Southern accent, because Lord knows I don't have a Southern accent.
Not at all. But what you do have is another bonus Geico episode coming your way before the end of the year. We're also still going to do In Your House 5. And of course, the No Holds Barred watch along. I'm pretty pumped about that. That's going to happen on Christmas Day, because you know what they say, Bruce.
Why have a Merry Christmas when you can have a No Holds Barred Christmas?
Until next time, he is at Bruce Prichard. I am at Hey, it's Conrad, and we are out of time. We'll see you back real soon right here on Something to Wrestle With. Bruce Prichard.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.